Last season, Tua played in every game after missing 5 the previous year due to concussions. At Alabama, Tua also underwent surgeries on his ankle and his hip. Mad Dog, what's your reaction to this latest news?
Well, listen, they had to do it, and the world's now going to pay attention here because we all saw Tua 2 years ago, as Stevie knows. We were sitting here doing these shows in a Buffalo game where they didn't rule it a concussion. Then he came out the following Thursday against Cincinnati, and that was a terrible thing. You remember that? They had to get the ambulance out there and what have you. Then he gets hurt on Christmas Day against the Dolphins, against Green Bay on Christmas Day for the Dolphins. So the world's going to pay attention here. Everybody doesn't want to see this. This is terrible to see. This hit last Thursday with Hamlin. Terrible to see. So the NFL will pay attention. Doctors will pay attention. The Dolphins are going to have to pay attention. That's number one. Number two, I think he's going to play. He's a football player. I think once he gets clearance, whenever that might be, it might be 8 weeks, might be 10 weeks, but I don't think you've seen the last of Tua on a football field. I think he is going to play. In the meantime, the Dolphins are a mess. They don't have a quarterback. So they're going to have a very long year. Now, we'll get to this question later about the money they got to pay him. How this is working. You're paying these quarterbacks all this money. They gave him the money when they knew he had a concussion history, which is interesting. But I do think you're going to see him. And I do think when he does come back, and I think he will play again, you will have the whole world basically at the edge of their seat, closing their eyes every time he runs around and gets a hit, scrambles, and everybody's going to be nervous about it. Because that's what happens with concussions. You hate to see it. So I think you're going to see that down the road. Kimberly?
Yeah, in fairness to the Dolphins, how they're handling it right now is saying, listen, this is not, we're going to leave it up to Tua and the independent neurologists that are looking at him. This is not, the team will not tell him what to do. This is a decision that he and his family have to make. I remember over in the last season and early in the offseason, we had the conversations of, do you think the Dolphins should pay Tua? Do you think that they should give him the money? I was surprised that they did, only because I would understand if they had waited and said, let's see you get through this year. Let's see you have back-to-back seasons that you're able to play close to 16 games or 16 games. But to be honest, his play warranted a big money contract. In the past 2 years, ranked second in passing yards per attempt, second in passer rating, fourth in total passing yards, fifth in passing touchdowns. At one point last year, early in the season, we're talking about him in the MVP category. So his play warranted that money. I think it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback with this situation and say, why they give him that money? Now they're on the hook for it. Well, they gave him the money because the play warranted it. They love this guy. They see him as the future. To your point, Doggy, about they have no quarterbacks. They added Tyler Huntley as a backup, who was in Cleveland and with the Ravens for a long time, and backed up Lamar Jackson. They're going to start Skylar Thompson this week. They had an opportunity to go out and get a Ryan Tannehill or get a more experienced quarterback, and Mike McDaniel decided to stick with Skylar Thompson. He knows the offense. They're confident in him. We'll see if that decision bears fruit throughout the season and what they do with Huntley. But this is not a situation, if you're a Dolphins fan, it is devastating. But when you look at Tua, with the contract now, with knowing he's a football player who wants to be on the field, I think we're going to see him, and then we're just going to have to wait and see what happens there.
Well, we're definitely going to see him. Ain't nobody worried about that. We know that he's not going to walk away. He's a football player, unfortunately. And I think that it's important for Mike McDaniels, to his family, along with Tua himself, to understand that people expressing opinions about what you should do is not somebody actually trying to tell you what to do. They don't get away with that. They don't get to make it. We all know we don't get to make that decision for him. He gets to make that decision. But he can't, just like we can't tell him to play or not to play, he can't tell us what opinions to have based on what we've seen. The man has had 4 concussions in the last 5 years. I mean, obviously, he suffered 3 in his years as a Miami Dolphin. He suffered 1 in his last year at Alabama, the same play where he got a broken nose along with a bevy of other injuries that ended his season. We get that, and we've seen him prone, and we know the difference between players who are prone to concussions and those who are not. Football is an incredibly violent sport, but you see a guy like Josh Allen at the quarterback position running over people. You see a guy like Justin Herbert who's taking his hits, but he still shows up every week. You see a plethora of players that endure a lot of physicality, but somehow, some way, they're able to withstand it. Whereas in the case of Tua Tagovailoa, who's a miniature individual, he's stocky, he's thick, but in the same breath, he's still relatively small. compared to a lot of guys playing the quarterback position, and then you see how susceptible he is to concussions, and it gives you causes for concern. Remember, when you're 6'5", just look at things from a physiological standpoint. When you look at a guy that's 6'5" and stuff like that, you lowering your head and stuff like that, chances are you ain't gonna hit him upside his head. But somebody as short as Tua, you know, when you lower down to hit him, I mean, chances are he's gonna take a lot of headshots. And with that last hit on Damar Hamlin's chest, Damar Hamlin it wasn't even a head-on-head collision. You know, he hit his helmet, hit Damar Hamlin, of all people, hit his chest and gave Tua a concussion. So there's a lot of reasons to be concerned, but I definitely agree with you, Kimberly, from the standpoint that having 29 touchdown passes last year, being a Pro Bowler for the first time, not missing a single game, balling out the way that he did, the contract to Tua was definitely justified. As it pertains to you, Doggy, when you say they don't have a quarterback, yes, Skylar Thompson is not Tua, and I understand that. And he's got a lot to prove. But I recall a couple of years ago Miami being in a playoff game, and that same guy, Skylar Thompson, showed up and scored 31 points on the Buffalo Bills in a playoff game. If you can do that in a playoff game on the road in Buffalo in inclement weather, you can do it during the regular season when half of your games are near South Beach. I think that Skylar Thompson has the potential to be fine, particularly with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to throw the football to and Achane to run the football. I think he should be fine.
S.A., will it be enough for the Jets if Rodgers is a, quote, game manager?
I don't think so. I think more is going to be required of him for the Jets to have the level of success that we aspire for them to have. When I'm looking at, by the way, just as an aside, when we were just finished talking about Tua, Aaron Rodgers' average time to throw this season has been 2.38 seconds. Second only to Tua, which is at 2.31 seconds. So Tua is sustaining these injuries when he gets the ball out of his hands quicker than anybody in the NFL. So that's something else, Doggy, just to bring up, just to have as a nugget of intel. Having said that, let's get back to Aaron Rodgers. I think that when you look at the New York Jets, we expect their defense to be big time. Hopefully everybody will come to their senses and they'll get Hassan Reddick signed, and ultimately their defense will be even more potent than it already has been, because I think it needs to be. It's all right to find a way to win, and I certainly understand that, and the defense clearly keeps them in games. And Aaron Rodgers being behind center and throwing the football the way that he's capable of throwing it, yeah, he can win some games throwing for less than 200 yards. He can win some games throwing for a little bit over 200 yards. But when you call him a game manager, that's not what he was brought to New York to do. That's not why Garrett Wilson is there. That's not why Breece Hall is there, what have you. You need Aaron Rodgers to look like Aaron Rodgers. That's what you brought him there for. It doesn't have to be the Aaron Rodgers from 15 years ago or whatever. But it does need to be the Aaron Rodgers from 5, 6 years ago, stuff like that. Yes, you do need him to go out there and play lights out, because the greater he plays, the more it puts a defense on its heels. When they're watching film, they're watching tape, they're preparing for him on a week-by-week basis. When you go out there and you show that you're a little bit more mobile than they think you are, that you still have that accuracy, when you have the arm strength and the velocity on your throws that you once had, when you do that, that puts a defense on its heels. When you resemble a game manager, they're able to take chances against you. They're able to come at you. And even though you might be able to get rid of the ball relatively quickly, it doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked upside your head. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a physical imposition imposed upon you. It doesn't mean those things won't happen. So I think it's important to recognize that, and for him to go out there and to elevate or to implement a level of intimidation, per se, Jeff Saturday and Doggy, when it comes to opposing defenses. Give them something to look at the tape and something to fear when it comes to you being Aaron Rodgers. I think that's incredibly important to add to the New York Jets offense.
Well, I think the fear and the concern is already embedded in defenses when they face Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's because of what he's done in the past, being a 40-year-old quarterback who's played as long as he has. I think his idea of, quote, the game manager and the rest of us, or the rest of our ideas, this is not a Justin Fields, Russell Wilson conversation. This is a conversation about game management, meaning we're still going to have to probably score 20, 28 points a game to go win, which he's fully capable of doing. This is not going to stay in the below 200 yards per game. This is Aaron Rodgers' first season with the Jets. I understand he was there, plays 4 snaps. Really, this is his first season with the Jets. They have 2 explosive backs They got Wilson, who you mentioned, who's going to be a playmaker for them. But all that's going to take time. And, let's add in, we have 3 starters on the offensive line that we're trying to get accustomed to each other. So there's a lot that has to kind of build with this offense for the Jets. Their defense, I don't think, is going to be as good as they have been in the past, but they're not going to have to be because the offense is going to balance it. The management portion for me with Aaron Rodgers is going to be not taking sacks. In the past, he knew he could overcome sacks not only with his arm but with his legs. With this Achilles injury and his age, I don't think he's still capable of those same things. Can he still pull it down and convert a first down? Sure. But what he relied on in Green Bay was the broken play. Hold, throw that ball deep. And to Stephen A., to your point, I don't think he can do that because of his body and taking the beating of shots, not only sacks, but hits, which you want to limit him. His offensive line, they've given up 3 sacks in 2 games. They played significantly better from week 1 to week 2. I expect that progression to continue. I do think the Jets can push for the AFC East and the AFC as a whole if Aaron Rodgers is, quote, a game manager, but under the guise of game management, Aaron Rodgers style, not what the world thinks of as a game manager.
Yeah, I'm not wrapped up with the yards as much. Already threw for 174 yards. It's not a big amount. I'm more concerned of when he makes the big play. And if they didn't have him last week, they wouldn't have won.
That's a fact.
He played really well in the second half. He had a 3rd and 1 big-time completion in the middle of the field. He hit Mike Williams on the left side. They went for the touchdown when they were in field goal range at 17 all. The Jets of yesteryear would have kicked the field goal.
That's right.
And then rely on their defense, and maybe somebody makes a mistake, they win 20-17. They were more aggressive there. And I think that he will play better as the season goes along. I am a little worried about his mobility. He is not going to run a lot. He hasn't run a lot at all so far. He's 40 years old, coming off an Achilles.
Right.
But as Herm Weber used to tell me, and he used to do a radio show, that's how I know this, when he coached the Chiefs with Montana there, and then obviously I forget Vermeil may have been the head coach. He said a quarterback has to go out there and win 3 or 4 games for a year.
That's right.
I'll get to the other 8. You get the other 8. I'll win 3 or 4.
That's right.
And can Rodgers win 3 or 4, like Cousins did the other night for Atlanta?
That's right.
Cousins won a game that they would not have won last year. It's worth. That's why he's getting paid $100 million.
That's exactly right.
He won a game. He won him down the field. They won. Partly Philadelphia, but he won the game. Rodgers did the same thing there on Sunday afternoon. He does that 3 more times. The Jets are going to have a good year, and they're going to win 11 or 12 games.
Right.
I think he can.